I want you to answer the phone. ABC agency, if you don't have $50,000, hang up.
Minimum level of engagement.
You want to get better at money conversations, have them early and often.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. It is day 9. The 9th proclamation is we will address issues of money early. Let that one sink in. We will address issues of money early. Everything that follows this sentiment, this proclamation. So what we need to do is resist over-investing in the buying cycle only to find out the clients can't afford to pay us what we are worth. This has happened to every single person on this call. It's happened to me. Every single time it happens, you go through this long process only to find out what? The clients can't afford you. If this is the case, why the heck aren't we bringing this up early? And I think it's because we're afraid of the tension that it's going to create. So we just avoid this. We'll do anything to get out of this. In fact, in one of the after hour sessions, somebody said, oh, the onboarding client process was brilliant. Just one thing, I forgot to talk about money. You cannot forget to talk about money. That has to be one of the primary objectives. Like Blair's giving me air quotes, you forgot? Really? Come on, really? So Blair introduced this term to me and I love it. It's the MLE, minimum level of engagement. What we want to do is declare it early in conversation so that if the client can't afford us, both of us can walk away before wasting valuable time and resources. Blair, take it away.
Yeah, back to this idea of no sunk cost, right? Let's, if there are uncovering objections early, and money is the big objection, right? So if there's a financial reason why it doesn't make sense to do business together, we want to find out as early as possible. Now, back when Win Without Pitching was a solo consulting practice, I was working with a client, owner of a small agency, and we were debriefing on a call. And I was kind of giving him a hard time because he forgot to talk about money, right? Just like it came up last night. So I was giving him a hard time, and he got a little frustrated with me, and he said, fine, Blair, how soon in the relationship do you want me to talk about money? And I said, I want you to answer the phone. ABC agency, if you don't have $50,000, hang up. That early.
Just like that, Blair?
A little facetious, perhaps, but I was just trying to make a point. It's really hard to talk about money too early. Now, we've got a global audience listening to this, and there's always people on the subject of money and the subject of talking about money. It is probably the issue on which I get the most pushback, where people say, no, you don't understand. In my part of the world, it's different. We don't talk about money. And I understand and accept that in some cultures, there are things that have to be done before you get down to business. And there's rapport that has to be established, and maybe even some kind of small C ceremonies that have to be done. But the principle still applies. You just wouldn't answer the phone the way that I just modeled. If you don't have $50,000, please hang up. So this principle doesn't change in different cultures. But there can be cultural overlays. Most of the people, particularly in North America and in the Western world, who think that their region of the country or their country is an exception, they're wrong, most of them. And it's a purely personal issue. So I've had, in the U.S., people from the South would say, oh, Blair, you don't understand. In the South, it's considered impolite to talk about money. Blair, you don't understand. In the Midwest, it's considered impolite to talk about money. I had somebody say, Blair, you don't understand. In New York, it's considered impolite to talk about money. I had somebody say to me, Blair, you don't understand. In Saudi Arabia, it's impolite to talk about money. Like, those last two are ridiculous, right? But I'm just telling you, I have heard it in every part of in the United States and most parts of the world. And I grant you that there are some exceptions to that. But let's not confuse what our mothers taught us about talking about money, or our fathers, our parents, that in a personal setting, it's considered impolite to talk about money. You don't volunteer how much you made last year to kind of a casual friend or even most members of your family, your extended family. You don't ask people what they paid for that boat or that house. David Baker and I have talked about this a couple times on a different podcasts, where David and I have a kind of an open book relationship. So we talk about money. We have a mutual fund where the three of us talk openly about money. We're just texting back and forth about all kinds of highly personal financial stuff today. And then I have one friend in the little village I live in where we agreed 15 years ago that we were going to have this money relationship because we needed to talk to other people, and we just agreed it would be part of our relationship. Everybody else outside of my wife and kids, it's like we're really cautious about talking about money. So that's considered polite. That's the baseline in your personal world. But you can't extrapolate that and bring that idea into the business world, because in the business world, an inability to talk about money at the appropriate time is considered a sign of poor business acumen. Right? It shows that you're afraid of the subject. And if you're afraid of the subject, you're going to lose on the subject when you get to kind of a win-lose situation. And I'm not saying not all financial situations are win-lose, but if you're afraid, you're setting yourself up for failure. So there's this idea of scarcity mindset or abundance mindset. I have an abundance mindset. I always say, well, if I need, money's like a river flowing by. If I need some, I just go dip the ladle into the river or shake the money tree. But my wife does not have, she has more of a scarcity mindset. So we've got to balance each other out. What makes me comfortable terrifies, what I'm comfortable with terrifies her. So you have to sort these things out in a personal life, and you have to figure out who you are and what your relationship with money is for you to be successful in business. It's like, so this is it's a small proclamation in a small book. But in my most recent book, Pricing Creativity, A Guide to Profit Beyond the Billable Hour, the last chapter in that book is called, I think it's called The Final Obstacle is You. And I talk quite a bit for many pages about how your attitude towards money impacts your ability to make it. And it says right in this proclamation of the book, the win without pitching rule of money is this: those who don't talk about it don't make it. So don't confuse what, the appropriate thing in your personal life about when and with whom to talk about money with talking about money in business. Lean right into it, learn to get good at it.
So we got to learn how to get comfortable talking about money. How do we do that, Blair?
Well, it also says in this proclamation, I think, that stress is caused by the things you don't do. So if you're fine, if things that you don't do, or sometimes things out of your control, some people are pretty good at letting go of those second ones, but those things that you're putting off, if you find money conversations stressful, it's because you're avoiding them. You want to get better at money conversations, have them early and often. We talked before, I forget what proclamation, but I was talking about this idea, this kind of requirement to put the objection on the table for the client to address. And again, an objection is a possible reason not to do business together, or a gap in the client's mind between what they need and what you can deliver. And I was saying, instead of like waiting for the client to bring up the objection and hoping they don't, you put it on the table and you ask the client to address it. And I think we even modeled some examples of financial is a big one. If early in the conversation you realize, I've got this minimum level of engagement, MLE or MLO I call it, and we can come back to that. I've got this hurdle, this financial hurdle that I need all my new clients to jump over. I'm going to place this hurdle in front of them. So you could just point out the gap like I did last time and say, hey, before we go too far, I'm a little you're a smaller organization than we're used to doing business with. I'm just a little concerned about your ability to afford us. And then pause, embrace silence. Or you could say, hey, before we go too far, I just need you to know that we have a minimum level of engagement of X in fees over the course of 12 months. So X might be 10 grand, it might be 100 grand, it might be 10 million. So that's the MLO. And the starting point for X is 10% of your fee target for the year. And we did some math a few nights ago about why it's 10%. So you start with 10%. So if you're hoping to do 200,000 in fees over the course of the year, your minimum level of engagement would be, the starting point would be around 20,000. And you might decide, I've got to adjust it down. You might want to decide that you need to adjust it up, or make sense in this moment to adjust it up. Now, the important thing about the minimum level of engagement is you don't actually need to hold the client to this. Think of it as a guideline, but you're presenting it as a hurdle for the client to clear. And if they say, there's a few different ways the conversation could go from here. The client might say, yeah, look, I think we're talking in that neighborhood, and that's great. The client could say, let's say your fee target for the year is 200,000. You use 20,000 as the minimum level of engagement. And the client says, well, I've got 5,000 budgeted for this project, so I don't know that this is going to work. So he's talking about the project. You're talking about fees over the course of a year, because we're a lot more interested, especially as you grow. In the early days, you're taking everything from everybody, right? As you get some traction, you start to grow, you start to substitute out the pure project work with the relationship work. Now, those relationships also consist of a series of projects, but you start to shape your language a little bit more around relationships. So you would say, our minimum level of engagement is $20,000 in fees over the course of 12 months. Stop, embrace silence, count to 10 under your breath, admire your cuticles, whatever you have to do, and wait for the client to speak next. Then if the client says, well, I've got $5,000 for this project, then you keep fishing. You say, okay, well, we're not in the $5,000 project business. We do these $5,000 projects all the time for clients with whom we have a longer term relationship with. So let me ask you, is there another project after, if this goes well, is there another project after this? Or is there more work that could you see it adding up to 20,000 or more over the course of the year? And the client might say, well, yeah, I mean, there's more work I could give you, but I'm not going to commit to that until we do this project. And your response is, yeah, that's great. Of course you wouldn't, and I wouldn't ask you to. I'm happy to proceed on a project by project basis. Here's the key. I just want you to know we're not in the one-off project business. We're in the business of a series of projects for companies that spend in excess of $20,000 with us. And if we agree to do business on this one project, and we should get into the details here, but if we agree to do business on this, we do so with the understanding that if everything goes well, there's more work after this, and we're going to continue to work together. So some people are listening to this thinking, yeah, okay, you two have more confidence than you deserve. It's easy for you to say that. But it's like, just think about it. Like you're building this business. You're trying to get to this place. There's nothing wrong with saying to the people that you do business with or that you're proposing to do business with, that, hey, like, we're not for everybody. We only work with certain types of clients, certain types of work. Why not certain types of financial engagements? Why not over a certain minimum level? Because this idea of 10%, starting point is 10% of your fee target, that comes from the idea that you should have 10 clients, and on average, even though nobody will be exactly the average, on average they represent 1/10. So if it's a $200,000 business, your minimum level of engagement would be $20,000. And so if you want to build this business to 400,000, you raise that minimum level of engagement to 40,000. And you imagine the client's going to push back on it. And, some might, because in the early days, like, you're the vendor, the client thinks they're the prize because they have the money, they're pushing you around. So some of those clients with whom you have some history, they might actually push back on that a little bit. But you know what? You'll survive. And then the new clients, you reinvent your firm one new client at a time, right? New client on day 13 after the 12th day of Win Without Pitching Manifesto. New opportunity comes in. It's a new you. It's a new attitude, new behavior, new pricing, new tactics and techniques, right? So that's when you figure out what's my minimum level of engagement, and you just say to the client, hey, it doesn't make sense for us to do business with companies smaller than this. And then just look at where the idea of the MLO is coming from. I'm saying to you, you can only have 10 clients. Yeah, 8 to 15. So one of my favorite talks is called The 5 Constraints, where I say there's this beautiful place called Blairtopia. And in Blairtopia, all creative firms not only are successful, they're thriving. And the reason they thrive is my laws are the laws of physics and jurisprudence. Basically, I have a law, you have to abide by it. And one of my laws is you can never have more than 10 clients at a time. And just like any constraint-driven exercise, when you try that on, you think, oh, I can't. Your first reaction is, I can't do that. And then after only a little while, like a minute or so, you start to think, oh, okay, I can see how I could adapt to the constraint, but it wouldn't be good. Like I would have to suffer. I would have to pay some sort of compromise or price. And then after another minute or so of thinking about it, you will actually see the breakthrough. The constraint itself will be the source of creativity to overcome the constraint and build a business that's even stronger than you have today. So if you had to live by this constraint of only 10 clients, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is you're going to have the MLO conversation with every new prospect. Because for you to take a new client on, that means you need to let one go. Who are you going to let go? The cheapest, the least profitable one. Right? So you're at the very minimum before you agree to take a new client on. You're going to make sure that they're more financially lucrative than the one that you're letting go. And if I had the power, I swear to God, I would impose this constraint on the world and you would be a more successful business person for it.
We've talked about this before, that your only real power is to withhold your expertise. And if you can't walk away, then you basically have relinquished all of your power, whatever little you had to begin with, to be honest. Tell us more about walking away.
You know, when we talk about withholding your expertise, I'm not talking about bluffing. I'm talking about like actually just try on being the person, the professional that you want to be in the moment. And just say, well, if that person would walk away, then I guess it makes sense for me to walk away too. You know, it's interesting. People have a hard time with the word no, and they have a hard time walking away. And it might be a peculiarity of my personality, or it might be something that I learned over the years, but like, I just don't see no as the end. I see no as the beginning of whatever happens next. And I'm a fairly patient person. So my point of view is everybody's buying. The only variable is time. And the only variable is like, we both have to live long enough. And if we both live long enough, you will eventually buy from me. And so that allows me to let go in the moment. It doesn't have to be now. That's fine. And, you know, the client can smell that. Like they can smell neediness and they're repulsed by it. They can smell discernment. And if they sense that you're looking for a good fit, they can read between the lines of a willingness to walk away. And then just saying, you know, you have a quick qualifying conversation, you ask you a few basic questions, you go, you know what? Sounds like a really exciting project. Doesn't seem to be for us. Pause. See what he says. Oh, something about, I don't think the budget's there, or it's not really the type of work that we should be doing. We could do it, but it's not really the type of work that we should be doing. I had that conversation via email last night with somebody. It's like, yeah, a bunch of money to do something that's a bit of a distraction. There are times in your life and your business where it's like, yeah, take the money. Right? And then there are times when it's hard as it is to pass on the money. It's like, nah, I need to stay focused. And sometimes staying focused means doing more of the work that is going to take you strategically forward. Like I'll just riff on this just for another minute, if you don't mind, if we have the time. Yeah. So you have, or you should have, this strategic vision of where you want to be in the future. We talk about the client's desired future state. You should have this 3-year vision, or at least a strong direction, right? And so, and the 3-year vision is a really good length of time because, like I said in a previous night, this EMLO math comes from this idea of 8 to 15 clients and a healthy churn, turning over your client base every 3 to 4 years. So you reinvent your firm one new client at a time. You're starting at the starting line today. You see, we'll call it a finish line. It's not appropriate, but you have a goal. It's 3 years out. In 3 years' time, you are going to turn over, on average, your entire client base. So if every new client that you take on is of strategic importance, and what I mean by that, it means it builds your skill in your declared area of focus, and it is a profitable profitable account, and the client recognizes and values your expertise. If those 3 things are in place, in 3 years, you will be whatever you want to be. You've got this vision, and so here's the key takeaway. If you have a vision for where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, etc., every new client is a step toward or away from that vision. Every wrong client that you take on is a slight divergence on your path, and you diminish the likelihood that you are going to end up in this place 3 years from now. Let's say this is your side job, and you'd be really happy if you made 50 grand at it this year, but your kind of vision is full-time employment and you want it to be 100 grand. I would say be aspirational in your EMLO, because you're not required to hold the client to it. You're simply putting a hurdle in front of them and saying, hey, listen, I can scope out this project. We can talk about it, but I just want you to know that I'm not really in the business of one-off projects. I'm in the business of working with clients who spend more than $10,000 with me over the course of the year. Even if you would take a grand, it doesn't matter what the numbers are here. Danny, is it Danny? Yeah. It doesn't matter what the numbers are here. Even if you would take a grand, you figure out what your EMLO is, and then you drop it. And then you wait to hear what the client says next. And if they say, oh, no, sorry, man, I've only got $1,000 for this project. You can say, wait a minute, just hold on. From time to time, I make some exceptions. Just let's talk about this. Tell me a little bit more, and then continue asking your qualifying questions. Tell me a little bit more about the project. When do you need this, etc. And then you could do a trial close. Okay, we got some capacity right now. If I said to you, I can do this for $1,000, but you got to say yes now. Is there anything else that you need to get done first, or is that something we can agree to now? Yeah, I can agree to that now. So here, me being you, Danny, I said, you got to spend 10 grand with us. And he said, yeah, I can't. I've only got $1,000. And I decide I want that $1,000. So I say, from time to time, I make exceptions. Let me ask you a few questions. And then I trial close. If I forget what the if then was, it was kind of a crappy trial close. The trial close should be, if we agree today, I'll waive the minimum level of engagement. We'll just do the project. Can you say yes today? Yeah. Okay. Waived. Done. $1,000. So my point about the external conditions, business is bad, the economy is in the tank, there's a global pandemic. I always encounter these reasons why you shouldn't have this steely backbone around money. And those reasons will loom large in your mind if you feel like the hurdle that I place in front of the client is going to cause them to run away. But you need to understand, and I don't know why I understand this so fundamentally at a deep level. It probably took me a while. You need to understand that every no you deliver, every objection you put in front of the client, every hurdle you put in front of them to overcome, you reserve the right to remove. So we think no is the end. We think they're going to smack into that $10,000 hurdle, turn around and start running away. But if we still want to take that business at $1,000, if we want to take this project business, we can say, hold on, from time to time and make some exceptions. Let me just ask you a few more questions. And then set up okay, if we can agree today, if I remove that minimum level of engagement, can we agree right now? Or is there something else you need to do? No, so if you remove it, we've got a deal. Done. So these external conditions, I want to say ignore them. And I don't know what other advice I can give you other than just like, come to see that these no's are not the end. No is not the end. It's just the beginning of what happens next.
Garcia tweeted at us, "You can't charge whatever you want without a proven record of return on investment." I added a little spice the way I read that. So, Blair, what do you say to that?
Just even, you can't charge whatever you want without blank. And I think the questioner said a proven track record of ROI, but like fill in the blank, anything. Like there could be other things without proving that you will deliver ROI on this project. There could be a bunch of other things, but it's just so far from from reality. One of the stories I like to tell is a friend of mine. He's an independent consultant. We talk about the anchoring effect. This idea, you've already referenced it, this idea that the anchoring effect is the idea that the first piece of information on a subject skews the final decision on it. So if you're going to put forward a multi-option proposal, you should always start with the highest price. And when you're talking numbers, you should always start with the high end of the range, just like I modeled earlier, 100,000 down to maybe 10,000. Because they just skew the final decision. So I like to tell this story. I have a friend who's a solo consultant. He had a client who had a $30,000 consulting budget for a project, and he closed them on a $300,000 solution. So 10 times the stated budget. But his anchor price, is the most expensive one that he started with, was $30 million. So like, just try this on for a second. Client says, my budget is X. And you say, okay, I have a proposal for 1,000 times your budget. And in the end, gets them to spend 10 times their budget. So this idea that you can't charge without a proven track record of ROI, like without any, it doesn't matter to me what's in the blank. You have no idea what you can charge. It is an infinite universe. Now, it's not always infinite. It depends on the value that you can help to create. Now, if you don't, so what I'm reading between the lines is basically, I don't have the experience to be able to charge that. So if you want to charge a whole lot more when you don't have the experience, put some compensation at risk. So my friend who put forward the $30 million consulting option, I don't know all the details of that proposal, but I know him well enough to know that, number one, he saw that he could create far in excess of $30 million in value. And number two, he probably put most of that compensation at risk, maybe even all of it. Probably not all of it, but I'll bet you he put like 29 million at risk, maybe more. What do I mean by putting it at risk? Performance pay. Basically, $30 million, here's how you pay me. You pay me a small base fee to do things, and then you pay me incentives based on outcomes. So this is us dipping our toe into the subject of value-based pricing, not only value-based pricing, but performance pricing, which is a variation of it, where you're getting paid based on your ability to create value, and you're putting skin in the game. So if you want to make a massive leap in what you're able to charge, start taking some risk in your pricing. And I said this a few nights ago, channeling the words of management guru Peter Drucker: in business, all profit is derived from risk. So you want to make lots of money, you want to charge lots, and have the client be ecstatic to pay you, put some skin in the game.
All right. There's another question, a tweet. I think we got to talk about it, Blair. And then I realized we're almost out of time. Let's do this one quick and get you on your way. Jim Zaslaw. Questions. I'll try and read this the way he wrote it. When you start with what's your budget, or you lead with an MLAW, might the prospect think they don't care about our business, they only care about money? It might help to build some rapport, goodwill, and trust so you can take them to the 100,000. Thoughts on that, Blair?
Yeah, so I say this with kindness and love in my heart. That's a rookie mistake. I'm not trying to demean you for feeling that way. I'm just saying a lot of people feel that way in the beginning. And at the root of that, there's a sense of your own sense of worth and your own kind of ability to create value and your comfort level with money, what Chris and I were talking about at the beginning. Again, it's a highly personal thing. It's like we all know people, right, who just like show up. It's like, I'm worth it. And my price is multiples of what you're considering paying somebody else. And there are some of us, the scarcity mindset, price buyers, and I see this a lot, like they'll never hire that person, right? I know somebody who said, I'm like one of these people, I always had to, if there's expensive options, I always take the most expensive option. And I think I love that about somebody. I don't love about somebody that they always take the cheapest option. There's nothing kind of endearing about that. There's nothing brave about that. That's somebody who values, who's more focused on the expense rather than the ROI. So in rough terms, there are two buyer types, price buyers and value buyers. There are more than two, but price buyer just wants the cheapest price. They'll give up all kinds of things. And so part of it might be kind of your own attitude to buying things and money and just a lack of experience. Just know that when you exude confidence over money, you are exuding confidence over results. And the best clients are willing to pay you a lot of money to get the results. And the worst clients want to pay you by the hour to do the thing.
Great. I'm glad you said it, not me. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We've been talking to Blair Enns, in case you're curious as to what the heck is going on here. We've been doing this epic mini-series, series of, 12 live podcasts with Blair Enns. He wrote the book, The Win Without Pitching Manifesto. We had just finished the 9th proclamation of 12.
Hey everyone, Ricky here. I'm one of the content directors here at The Futur. If you enjoyed today's video, leave a comment down below with a timestamp letting me know which was the best part. There are going to be some other videos that are going to pop up right here that you also might enjoy. And if you could do what everyone asks you to do, which is to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It honestly does go a long way in our mission here to teach 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love. Head to thefutur.com to learn more. Thanks for watching and your continued support, and we will see you guys in the next video.